In this video, we will discuss Dictionary section of GST Act 1999. We will explain dictionary words and their meaning. Please note that these meanings of words explained will only be relevant to GST purposes unless regulations specify any other meanings. Please find disclaimer on screen. If this is your first visit to our channel, we would like to inform you that this video is part of a video series explaining GST Act 1999. Are you interested in learning more about GST Act Australia? Please check our playlist on our YouTube channel for this subject. This is video number 6 of GST series. In this video we will discuss divisions 195 from Chapter 6 Volume 2 of GST Act 1999. This section of GST Act is Dictionary of this Act. GST Dictionary have about 383 words in total on April 11, 2023. Word count is subject to change in future. Please find Dictionary in Volume 2 of Chapter 6 of GST Act 1999 from pages 171 to 217. There is link in description box. You can access free copies of GST Act there. We will try to explain all dictionary words in sequence videos. You can sit back and enjoy the learnings. By the end of all dictionary videos you will have improved understanding of GST Act. In this video, we will explain dictionary words contained in pages 171 to 177 from Volume 2 of GST Act 1999. We will explain from first word of GST Dictionary to COM section in this video. We will discuss this video in following order. 1. List of words from GST Act. 2. Explanation of listed words and their meaning. 3. A question and answer activity for you. Let's launch into. Please find on screen words from GST Act 1999. We will explain these words in later section of this video. These words are from Division 195 of GST Act. Division 195 is last division of GST Act 1999. On screen are the words from pages 171 to 176 of Volume 2. We will read the words as we go through. Please pause to read other related information, or go to GST Act to read the information. Not all the meanings are explained in GST Dictionary. What this means is that other sections of GST Act explain these meanings. We will explain these words in later section of this video. Word number 1. 90% owned group. 2. 100% subsidiary. 3. ABN. 4. Account on a cash basis. 5. Account on the same basis. 6. ACNC-registered charity. 7. ACNC-registered religious institution. 8. Acquisition. Next page. Page 172. Word number 9. Actual application of a thing. 10. Additional consideration. 11. Adjustment. 12. Adjustment event. 13. Adjustment note. 14. Adjustment period. 15. Adult and Community Education course. 16. Aged Care Minister. 17. Aged Care Secretary. Next page. Page 173. 18. Aircraft stores. 19. Airport shop goods. 20. Amalgamated company. 21. Amalgamating company. 22. Amalgamation. 23. Amount. 24. Annual apportionment election. 25. Annual apportionment turnover threshold. 26. Annual GST liability. 27. Annual tax period. 28. Annual tax period election. 29. Apply. 30. Appropriate percentage. Next page. Page 174. Word number. 31. Approved form. 32. Approved pathology practitioner. 33. Approved valuation. 34. Assessable income. 35. Assessable professional income. 36. Assessed GST. 37. Assessed net amount. 38. Assessment. 39. Associate. 40. At least a 90% stake. 41. Australian-based business recipient. 42. Australian business register. Next page. Page 175. Word number. 43. Australian business registrar. 44. Australian consumer. 45. Australian fee or charge. 46. Australian government agency. 47. Australian law. 48. Australian resident. 49. Australian tax. 50. Average income. 51. Average input tax credit fraction. 52. Base year. 53. Batch repair process. 54. Beverage. 55. Borrowing. 56. Business. Next page. Page 176. Word number. 57. Business day. 58. Car. 59. Car limit. 60. Car parts. 61. Carried on in the indirect tax zone. 62. Carrying on an enterprise. 63. Cash accounting turnover threshold. 64. Child care minister. 65. Commercial accommodation. 66. Commercial residential premises. Next and last page for this video. Page number 177. 67. Commissioner. 68. Company. 69. Complying Superannuation Fund. 70. Comptroller General of Customs. 71. Compulsory Third-Party Scheme. 72. Connected with the Indirect Tax Zone. We will try explaining these 72 words from GST Dictionary, from pages 171 to 177 of Volume 2 of GST Act. We will try to explain mentioned words, in this video, in best possible manner. We would appreciate your feedback. We will have 7 sections for this video, 1 section for each page of GST Dictionary mentioned in this video. Section 1. We will explain these words on screen in Section 1 of this video. You can find these words on page 171 in Division 195 of GST Act Volume 2. We will discuss these words from GST Dictionary. 1. 90% owned group. 2. 100% subsidiary. 3. ABN. 4. Account on a cash basis. 5. Account on the same basis. 6. ACNC-registered charity. 7. ACNC-registered religious institution. 8. Acquisition. Firstly, we will look at meaning of 90% owned group. You can find meaning of 90% owned group in Division 190-1 of GST Act Volume 2. For GST purposes, 2 companies are considered members of same 90% owned group if A. One company has at least a 90% stake in each of 2 companies, or B. A third company has at least a 90% stake in each of 2 companies. We will try to understand 90% of owned group with help of an illustrative example. For example, if Woolworths has 90% stake in Big W, For GST purposes, this is considered as GST Group. Both companies will be viewed as one group for GST purposes. Or if Woolworths have 90% stake in Big W and 90% stake in Dan Murphy's. For GST purposes, this is considered as 90% owned group. Word number 2. 100% subsidiary. You can find meaning of 100% subsidiary in section 975 to 505 of Income Tax and Administration Act 1997. A subsidiary company is a 100% subsidiary of a holding company if all the shares are beneficially owned by 1. Holding company. 2. One or more 100% of subsidiary of the holding company. 3. Holding company and one or more 100% subsidiary of holding company. A subsidiary company is not 100% subsidiary of holding company if a person is in position to effect rights in relation to subsidiary company. 1. Of holding company. 2. 100% subsidiary of holding company. Subsidiary company is also not 100% subsidiary of holding company if in some future time a person will be in position to effect the rights holding company and 100% subsidiary of holding company. A company other than subsidiary company is 100% subsidiary of holding company if 1. It is 100% holding of subsidiary company or 2. It is a 100% of subsidiary of a 100% subsidiary of the holding company. Now we will look at ABN. This term is very self-explanatory. You can find meaning of ABN in section 41 of the AIM New Tax System, Australian Business Number, Act 1999. ABN means an Australian business number for an entity. Means an entity's ABN number as shown in Australian Business Register. Word. Number for account on cash basis. You account on a cash basis while a choice you make under section 29 to 40, or a permission of the Commissioner under section 29 to 45 in relation to you. You can find information about choosing to account on cash basis in section 29 to 40 and 29 to 45 of GST Act. That is page number 83 of GST Act Volume 1. In simple words, a business can choose to account on cash basis if A. Business GST turnover is less than $2 million and business turnover is less than $10 million in a financial year. These amounts are subject to future changes. B. You do not carry a business and your business and GST turnover does not exceed cash accounting turnover threshold. C. You account your income using cash receipt method. D. Your enterprise has permission from Australian Taxation Commissioner in writing. To get Commissioner permission in writing, you must apply to Commissioner in an approved form and satisfy Commissioner regarding nature and size of enterprise and nature of accounting that you choose. Word number 4. Account on same basis. Two or more companies account on the same basis if A. Each company accounts on a cash basis, or B. None of the companies account on a cash basis. Word number 5. ACNC-registered charity. ACNC-registered charity means an entity that is registered under the Australian Charities and Not-for-Profits Commission Act 2012 as the type of entity mentioned in column 1 of item 1 of the table in subsection 25-5 of that act. So, column 1 of item 1 of the table in subsection 25-5 of ACNC Act 2012 states charitable entity as entity with charitable purpose. Charitable purpose means any of the following. A. The purpose of advancing health. B. The purpose of advancing education. C. The purpose of advancing social or public welfare. D. The purpose of advancing religion. E. The purpose of advancing culture. F. The purpose of promoting reconciliation, mutual respect, and tolerance between groups of individuals that are in Australia. G. The purpose of promoting or protecting human rights. H. The purpose of advancing the security or safety of Australia or the Australian public. I. The purpose of preventing or relieving the suffering of animals. J. The purpose of advancing the natural environment. K. Any other purpose beneficial to the general public. Word number 6. Now we will look at ACNC-registered religious institution. Friends, ACNC-registered religious institution is very similar to ACNC-registered charity we discussed before. Only difference: ACNC-registered religious institution has purpose of advancing religion. Word number 7. Acquisition. You can find more information on GST acquisitions in section 11 to 10 of GST Act. You can find this in volume 1 of GST Act on page number 33. An acquisition is any form of acquisition whatsoever. Acquisition meaning outside GST Act is an asset or object bought or obtained. However, for GST purposes, acquisition includes any of these. A. An acquisition of goods. B. An acquisition of services. C. A receipt of advice or information. D. An acceptance of a grant, assignment or surrender of real property. E. An acceptance of a grant, transfer, assignment or surrender of any right. F. An acquisition of something the supply of which is a financial supply. G. An acquisition of a right to require another person. I. To do anything, or 2. To refrain from an act, or 3. To tolerate an act or situation. H. Any combination of any two or more of the matters referred to in paragraphs A to G. However, acquisition does not include A. An acquisition of money unless the money is provided as consideration for a supply that is a supply of money or digital currency, or B. An acquisition of digital currency unless the digital currency is provided as consideration for a supply that is a supply of digital currency or money. For example, if you acquire money by loan, that is not considered as acquisition for GST purposes. If you acquire money with supply of anything or by payments received. That was it for section 1. That is page number 171. Section 2. Now we will explain words on page number 172 of Division 195 of GST Act Volume 2. This will section 2 of this video for dictionary. Please find words on screen. This is word number 8. Actual application of a thing. You can find more information on this in section 129 to 40 of GST Act, that is, on page number 22 of volume 2. Work out the extent, if any, to which you have applied the thing acquired or imported for a creditable purpose during the period of time. A. Starting when you acquired or imported the thing, and B. Ending at the end of the adjustment period. This is the actual application of the thing. Friends, creditable purpose means, in simple words, a business expense which is not input taxed. Word number 9. Additional consideration. You can find more information on additional consideration in Division 133-5(3) of GST Act. You can find this division on page 42 of Volume 2. Additional consideration for an acquisition includes a part of the consideration for the acquisition that A. Relates to the amount of GST payable on the taxable supply to which the acquisition relates, and B. At the time of the acquisition, the parties to the transaction under which the acquisition was made assumed was not payable. Word number 10. Adjustment. Adjustment means an increasing adjustment, or a decreasing adjustment. Word number 11. Adjustment event. You can find more information on adjustment event sections 19 to 10 and 69 to 50 of GST ACT. That is page number 51 and 242 of Volume 1. These are adjustment events. A. The return to a supplier of a thing, or part of a thing, supplied, whether or not the return involves a change of ownership of the thing. B. A change to the previously agreed consideration for a supply or acquisition, whether due to the offer of a discount or otherwise. C. A change in the extent to which an entity that makes an acquisition provides, or is liable to provide, consideration for the acquisition, unless the entity accounts on a cash basis. 3. An adjustment event. A. Can arise in relation to a supply even if it is not a taxable supply, and B. Can arise in relation to an acquisition even if it is not a creditable acquisition. 4. However, the return of a thing supplied, or part of a thing supplied, to its supplier is not an adjustment event if the return is for the purpose of repair or maintenance. Friends, we will discuss in more depth about adjustment events in future videos of this series. 12. Adjustment note. We will explain about meaning adjustment note. You can find more information about adjustment notes in subsection 29-75(1), and if applicable, section 54 to 50 of GST ACT. An adjustment note for an adjustment that arises from an adjustment event relating to a taxable supply. A. Must be issued by the supplier of the taxable supply in the circumstances set out in subsection 2. And B. Must set out the ABN of the entity that issues it, and C. Must contain such other information as the Commissioner determines in writing, and D. Must be in the approved form. However, the Commissioner may treat as an adjustment note a particular document that is not an adjustment note. 2. The supplier of the taxable supply must A. Within 28 days after the recipient of the supply requests the supplier to give an adjustment note for the adjustment relating to the supply, or B. If the supplier has issued a tax invoice in relation to the supply, or the recipient has requested one, and the supplier becomes aware of the adjustment before an adjustment note is requested, within 28 days after becoming aware of that fact, give to the recipient an adjustment note for the adjustment, unless any tax invoice relating to the supply would have been a recipient-created tax invoice, in which case it must be issued by the recipient. 3. However, in circumstances that the Commissioner determines in writing, paragraph 2b has effect as if the number of days referred to in that paragraph is the number of days specified in the determination in relation to those circumstances. 4. Those circumstances may, for example, include the kind of the taxable supply. There will be more on adjustment notes in our future videos. To stay updated, please subscribe to our channel. Word number 13. Adjustment period. We can find more information on adjustment periods in subdivision 129B of GST ACT. That is page number 22 of volume 2. 1. An adjustment period for an acquisition or importation is a tax period applying to you that A. Starts at least 12 months after the end of the tax period to which the acquisition or importation is attributable, or would be attributable if it were a creditable acquisition or creditable importation, and B. Ends on June 30th in any year, or 2. If none of the tax periods applying to you in a particular year ends on June 30th. Closer to June 30th than any of the other tax periods applying to you in that year. In addition, a tax period provided for under section 27 to 39 or 27 to 40 or subsection 151-55, 1, or 162 to 85. 1 is an adjustment period for the acquisition or importation. Note: Section 27 to 39 deals with an incapacitated entity's tax periods. Section 27 to 40 and subsections 151-55, 1, and 162-85, 1, deal with an entity's concluding tax period. 2. Despite subsection 1, for an acquisition or importation that relates to business finance. A. If the GST exclusive value of the acquisition or importation is $50,000 or less, only the first such tax period is an adjustment period. Or B. If the GST exclusive value of the acquisition or importation is more than $50,000 but less than $500,000, only the first 5 such tax periods are adjustment periods. Or C. If the GST exclusive value of the acquisition or importation is $500,000 or more, only the first 10 such tax periods are adjustment periods. 3. Despite subsection 1, for an acquisition or importation that does not relate to business finance. A. If the GST exclusive value of the acquisition or importation is $5,000 or less, only the first 2 such tax periods are adjustment periods. Or B. If the GST exclusive value of the acquisition or importation is more than $5,000 but less than $500,000, only the first 5 such tax periods are adjustment periods. Or C. If the GST exclusive value of the acquisition or importation is $500,000 or more, only the first 10 such tax periods are adjustment periods. However, the Commissioner may, having regard to record-keeping requirements for the purposes of income tax, determine in writing that a fewer number of tax periods are adjustment periods for a particular class of acquisitions or importations that do not relate to business finance. Word number 14. Adult and community education course means a course of study or instruction that is likely to add to the employment-related skills of people undertaking the course and A. is of a kind determined by the Student Assistance Minister to be an adult and community education course and is provided by, or on behalf of, a body. I. that is a * higher education institution, or 2. that is recognized by a state or territory authority as a provider of courses of a kind described in the determination, or 3. that is funded by a state or territory on the basis that it is a provider of courses of a kind described in the determination, or B. is determined by the Student Assistance Minister to be an adult and community education course. Word number 15. Aged Care Minister means the minister administering the Aged Care Act 1997. Word number 16. Aged Care Secretary means the Secretary of the Department that administers the Aged Care Act 1997. Friends, that was it for Section 2, that is page number 172 of Division 195. Division 195 is Dictionary of GST Act. Now we will explain words on page number 173 of Division 195. This will be Section 3 of Dictionary for this video. Please find words on screen. Word number 17. Aircraft stores. You can find more information on aircraft stores in Section 130C of the Customs Act 1901. Aircraft stores means stores for the use of the passengers or crew of an aircraft, or for the service of an aircraft. Word number 18. Airport shop goods. You can find more information on airport shop goods in the Customs Act 1901. Airport shop goods means A. Goods declared by the regulations to be airport shop goods for the purposes of inwards duty-free shops, international flight, proprietor, relevant traveler, or B. Goods included in a class of goods declared by the regulations to be a class of airport shop goods for the purposes of above section. Word number 19. Amalgamated company, in relation to an amalgamation, means the single company that is, or will be, the result of the amalgamation, and that continues, or will continue, after the amalgamation. It may be one of the amalgamating companies or a new company. Word number 20. Amalgamating company, in relation to an amalgamation, means any company that amalgamates with one or more other companies under the amalgamation. Word number 21. Amalgamation means any procedure, under an Australian law or a foreign law, by which two or more companies amalgamate and continue as one company. Word number 22. Amount includes a nil amount. Word number 23. Annual apportionment election. You can find more about annual apportionment election in section 131-10 of GST Act. That is on page 28 of volume 2. In some cases, you may be able to claim a full input tax credit for acquisitions that are only partly for a creditable purpose. You will then have an increasing adjustment for a later tax period that better matches your obligation to lodge an income tax return. You are eligible to make an annual apportionment election if A. You are a small business, that is, your GST turnover is less $2 million and business turnover is less than $10 million a year. B. You do not carry a business and your business and GST turnover does not exceed $2 million and $10 million a year. C. You have not made any election to pay GST by installment. D. You have not made any annual tax period election. Word number 24. Annual apportionment turnover threshold. At the present, annual apportionment turnover threshold is A. Your GST turnover is less $2 million and business turnover is less than $10 million a year. However, this is subject to change. Word number 25. Annual GST liability. You can find more information about annual GST liability in section 162 to 145 of GST Act. That is page number 123 of volume 2. 1. Your annual GST liability, for an installment tax period that is a financial year, is the amount that would be your net amount for the period if it were not reduced. 2. Your annual GST liability, for an installment tax period that is only part of a financial year, is the sum of A. The amount that would be your net amount for the period if it were not reduced, and B. Your early net amounts for the financial year, subtracting any of those amounts that are less than 0. We will explain about net amounts in our future videos. Word number 26. Annual tax period has the meaning given by section 151-40 of GST Act. You can find section 151-40 on page 86 of volume 2. While an annual tax period election that you have made has effect, each financial year is a tax period that applies to you. 2. However, if your annual tax period election takes effect on a day that is not the start of a financial year, the period from when your annual tax period election takes effect until the end of the financial year in which it takes effect is a tax period that applies to you. 3. A tax period under this section is an annual tax period. Word number 27. Annual tax period election means an election made under section 151-10. You can find section 151-10 on pages 82 and 83. You are eligible to make an annual tax period election if A. You are not required to be registered, and B. You have not made any election to pay GST by installments. 2. However, You are not eligible to make an annual tax period election if the only reason you are not required to be registered is because you disregarded supplies under paragraph 188-15(3)(b) or 188-23(b), which are about supplies of rights or options offshore. You may, by notifying the Commissioner in the approved form, make an annual tax period election if you are eligible. Word number 28. Apply. You can find more about apply on section 129 to 55. That page number 25 of volume 2. Meaning of apply in relation to a thing acquired or imported includes A. Supply the thing, and B. Consume, dispose of, or destroy the thing, and C. Allow another entity to consume, dispose of, or destroy the thing. Word number 29. Appropriate percentage for a GST installment quarter. You can find more about subsection 162-175(5). That is page number 126 of volume 2. The appropriate percentage for a GST installment quarter is A. If the GST installment quarter ends on September 30th, 25%, or B. If the GST installment quarter ends on December 31st, 50%, or C. If the GST installment quarter ends on March 31st, 75%, or D. If the GST installment quarter ends on June 30th, 100%. That was it for section 3. Now we will explain next page, that is page number 174 of division 195. This is section 4 of our video. Please find words on screen. Word number 30. Approved form has the meaning given by section 388 to 50 in Schedule 1 to the Taxation Administration Act 1953. Approved forms. 1. A return, notice, statement, application, or other document under a taxation law is in the approved form if, and only if A. It is in the form approved in writing by the Commissioner for that kind of return, notice, statement, application, or other document, and B. It contains a declaration signed by a person or persons as the form requires, and C. It contains the information that the form requires, and any further information, statement, or document as the Commissioner requires, whether in the form or otherwise, and D. For a return, notice, statement, application, or document that is required to be given to the Commissioner, it is given in the manner that the Commissioner requires, which may include electronically. 1a. Despite subsection 1, a document that satisfies paragraphs 1a, that is, it is in the form approved in writing by the Commissioner for that kind of return, notice, statement, application, or other document. 1b, which is, it contains a declaration signed by a person or persons as the form require, and 1d, which is, for a return, notice, statement, application, or document that is required to be given to the Commissioner, it is given in the manner that the Commissioner requires, but not include paragraph 1c. It contains the information that the form requires, and any further information, statement, or document as the Commissioner requires, whether in the form or otherwise. All we mentioned before is also considered in the approved form if it contains the information required by the Commissioner. The Commissioner must specify the requirement in writing. 2. The Commissioner may combine in the same approved form more than one return, notice, statement, application, or other document. 2. The Commissioner may approve a different approved form for different entities. Example: the Commissioner may require high-wealth individuals to lodge a different income tax return to that required to be lodged by an individual whose only income is a salary. Word number 31. Approved pathology practitioner. Approved pathology practitioner means a person who is an approved pathology practitioner for the purposes of the Health Insurance Act 1973. Word number 32. Approved valuation has the meaning given by subsection 75-35(2) of GST Act. You can find this information on page 279 of Volume 1. This states that the Commissioner may, by legislative instrument, determine in writing requirements for making valuations for the purposes of this division. 3. A valuation made in accordance with those requirements is an approved valuation. Word number 33. Assessable income has the meaning given by subsection 995-1 of the Income Tax and Administration Tax, 1997. Assessable income is income that you pay tax on, if you earn enough to exceed the tax-free threshold. Word number 34. Assessable professional income. Assessable professional income has the meaning given by subsection 405-21 of the EDA 1997. To work out assessable professional income, add these: assessable income that you derive as a reward for providing services relating to your activities as a special professional. Assessable income from prizes. Assessable income from promotions and commentary. Assessable income from assigning copyright or granting a license. Assessable income from assigning or granting patent rights. Other assessable income from works or inventions. However, you cannot include these in professional assessable income, services to another person by engaging in activities as the author of a literary, dramatic, musical or artistic work, or as the inventor of an invention, with some exceptions, coaching or training sports persons, umpiring or refereeing a sporting competition, administering a * sporting competition, being a member of the pit crew in motorsport, being a theatrical or sports entrepreneur, owning or training animals. Payments at end of employment, and capital gains. Friends, we have attached links to subsection 405-20 and 405-30 of the Income Tax and Administration Act 1997 in description box. Word number 35. Assess GST. Assess GST on a taxable supply under Section 78 to 50, settlements of insurance claim, or 105 to 5, supplies by creditors in satisfaction of debts, or b. A taxable importation, means the GST * assessed on the taxable supply or taxable importation. 36. Assessed net amount, for a tax period, means the net amount assessed for the tax period. Word number 37. Assessment has the meaning given by the ETA 1997. Assessment. A. Of an assessable amount, means an ascertainment of the assessable amount, and b. In relation to a tax-related liability not covered by paragraph A, has the meaning given by a taxation law that provides for the assessment of the amount of the liability. Word number 38. Associate has the meaning given by Section 318 of the ETA 1936. 1. For the purposes of this part, the following are associates of an entity, in this subsection called the primary entity, that is a natural person, otherwise than in the capacity of trustee. A relative of the primary entity. B. A partner of the primary entity or a partnership in which the primary entity is a partner. C. If a partner of the primary entity is a natural person otherwise than in the capacity of trustee, the spouse or a child of that partner. D. A trustee of a trust where the primary entity, or another entity that is an associate of the primary entity because of another paragraph of this subsection, benefits under the trust. E. A company where I. The company is sufficiently influenced by A. The primary entity, or B. Another entity that is an associate of the primary entity because of another paragraph of this subsection. Or C. Another company that is an associate of the primary entity because of another application of this paragraph. Or D. Two or more entities covered by the preceding sub-paragraphs. Or 2. A majority voting interest in the company is held by A. The primary entity, or B. The entities that are associates of the primary entity because of subparagraph I of this paragraph and the preceding paragraphs of this subsection, or C. The primary entity and the entities that are associates of the primary entity because of subparagraph I of this paragraph and because of the preceding paragraphs of this subsection. 2. For the purposes of this part, the following are associates of a company, in this subsection called the primary entity. A. A partner of the primary entity or a partnership in which the primary entity is a partner. B. If a partner of the primary entity is a natural person otherwise than in the capacity of trustee, the spouse or a child of that partner. C. A trustee of a trust where the primary entity, or another entity that is an associate of the primary entity because of another paragraph of this subsection, benefits under the trust. D. Another entity in this paragraph called the controlling entity, where I. The primary entity is sufficiently influenced by A. The controlling entity, or B. The controlling entity and another entity or entities, or 2. A majority voting interest in the primary entity is held by A. The controlling entity, or B. The controlling entity and the entities that, if the controlling entity were the primary entity, would be associates of the controlling entity because of subsection 1. 3. For the purposes of this part, the following are associates of a trustee, in this subsection called the primary entity. A. Any entity that benefits under the trust. B. If a natural person benefits under the trust, any entity that, if the natural person were the primary entity, would be an associate of that natural person because of subsection 1, or because of this subsection. C. If a company is an associate of the primary entity because of paragraph A or B of this subsection, any entity that, if the company were the primary entity, would be an associate of the company because of subsection 2, or because of this subsection. 4. For the purposes of this part, the following are associates of a partnership, in this subsection called the primary entity. A. A partner in the partnership. B. If a partner in the partnership is a natural person, any entity that, if that natural person were the primary entity, would be an associate of that natural person because of subsection 1 or 3. C. If a partner in the partnership is a company, any entity that, if the company were the primary entity, would be an associate of the company because of subsection 2 or 3. 5. In determining, for the purposes of this section, whether an entity is an associate of another entity at a particular time, in this subsection called the test time. A. An entity in this subsection called the public unit trust entity, that, apart from this subsection, is the trustee of a public unit trust at the test time, is to be treated as if it were a company instead of a trustee, and B. The public unit trust entity is taken to be sufficiently influenced by another entity or other entities if the public unit trust entity is accustomed or under an obligation, whether formal or informal, or might reasonably be expected, to act in accordance with the directions, instructions or wishes of the other entity or other entities, whether those directions, instructions or wishes are, or might reasonably be expected to be, communicated directly or through interposed companies, partnerships or trusts, and C. Another entity or other entities are taken to hold a majority voting interest in the public unit trust entity if either of the following percentages is not less than 50%. I. The percentage of the income of the trust represented by the share of the income to which the other entity or other entities are entitled, or that the other entity or other entities are entitled to acquire. 2. The percentage of the corpus of the trust represented by the share of the corpus to which the other entity or other entities are entitled, or that the other entity or other entities are entitled to acquire. 6. For the purposes of this section. A reference to an entity benefiting under a trust is a reference to the entity benefiting, or being capable, whether by the exercise of a power of appointment or otherwise, of benefiting, under the trust, either directly or through any interposed companies, partnerships or trusts. And B. A company is sufficiently influenced by an entity or entities if the company, or its directors, are accustomed or under an obligation, whether formal or informal, or might reasonably be expected, to act in accordance with the directions, instructions or wishes of the entity or entities, whether those directions, instructions or wishes are, or might reasonably be expected to be, communicated directly or through interposed companies, partnerships or trusts. And C. An entity or entities hold a majority voting interest in a company if the entity or entities are in a position to cast, or control the casting of, more than 50% of the maximum number of votes that might be cast at a general meeting of the company. 7. In this section and any other provision of this Act that has effect for the purposes of this section, a reference to the spouse of a person does not include a spouse who is legally married to the person but living separately and apart from the person on a permanent basis, or b. A spouse within the meaning of paragraph A of the definition of spouse in subsection 995-1 of the Income Tax Assessment Act 1997 who is living separately and apart from the person on a permanent basis. Word number 39. Now we will have look on word number 39. That is, at least a 90% stake in a company has the meaning given by section 190-5, which states that a company, the holding company, has at least a 90% stake in another company, the subsidiary company, if the holding company, A, controls, or is able to control, at least 90% of the voting power in the subsidiary company, whether directly or indirectly through one or more interposed companies, and B. has the right to receive, whether directly or indirectly through one or more interposed companies, at least 90% of any dividends that the subsidiary company may pay, and C. has the right to receive, whether directly or indirectly through one or more interposed companies, at least 90% of any distribution of capital of the subsidiary company. Word number 40. Australian-based business recipient has the meaning given by subsection 9-26(2) of GST Act. An entity is an Australian-based business recipient of a supply made to the entity if A. the entity is registered, and B. an enterprise of the entity is carried on in the indirect tax zone, and C. the entity's acquisition of the things supplied is not solely of a private or domestic nature. Note, if a supply is not connected with the indirect tax zone, that is Australia, the Australian-based business recipient may be subject to a reverse charge. See subdivision 84A of GST Act. Word number 41. Australian Business Register means the register established under Section 24 of the ANU tax system, Australian Business Number, Act 1999, which states that the Australian Business Register 1. The registrar must establish and maintain an Australian Business Register. 2. The Australian Business Register may be kept in any form that the registrar considers appropriate. That was at page number 174 of Dictionary. This was fourth part of our video. Now we will have look into our 5 part, that is page number 175 of division 195. Word number 42. Australian Business Registrar means the registrar of the Australian Business Register. Word number 43. Australian consumer has the meaning given by subsection 9-25(7) and affected by section 84 to 100. You can find subsection 9-25(7) on page number 19 and 20, and section 84 to 100 on page number 358 of volume 1 of GST Act. Subsection 9-25(7) states that an entity is an Australian consumer of a supply made to the entity if a. the entity is an Australian resident, other than an entity that is an Australian resident solely because the definition of Australia in the ACT 1997 includes the external territories, and b. the entity I is not registered, or 2. if the entity is registered, the entity does not acquire the things supplied solely or partly for the purpose of an enterprise that the entity carries on. Note: suppliers must take reasonable steps to ascertain whether recipients are Australian consumers. See section 84 to 100. Section 84 to 100 states, when entities are treated as not being Australian consumers. 1. The GST law applies in relation to you as if another entity was not an Australian consumer of a supply if a. you take reasonable steps to obtain information about whether or not the other entity is an Australian consumer of the supply, and b. after taking those steps, you reasonably believe that the other entity is not an Australian consumer of the supply. 2. Without limiting subsection 1, the GST law applies in relation to you as if another entity was not an Australian consumer of a supply if a. your usual business systems and processes provide you with a reasonable basis for forming a reasonable belief about whether the other entity is an Australian consumer of the supply, and b. you reasonably believe that the other entity is not an Australian consumer of the supply. 3. For the purposes of subsections 1 and 2, to the extent that your belief that the other entity is not an Australian consumer of the supply is based on the other entity being registered, your belief is reasonable only if a. the other entity's ABN, or the other identifying information prescribed under subsection 4, relating to the other entity, has been disclosed to you, and b. the other entity has provided to you a declaration or information that indicates that the other entity is registered. 4. The Commissioner may, by legislative instrument, prescribe identifying information for the purposes of paragraph 3a. Word number 44. Australian fee or charge means a fee or charge, however described, other than an Australian tax, imposed under an Australian law and payable to an Australian government agency. Word 45. Australian government agency has the meaning given by section 995 to 1 of the ACT 1997. Australian government agency means a. the Commonwealth, a state or a territory, or c. an authority of the Commonwealth or of a state or a territory. Word number 46. Australian law has the meaning given by section 995 to 1 of the ACT 1997. Australian law means a Commonwealth law, a state law or a territory law. Word number 47. Australian resident means a person who is a resident of Australia for the purposes of the ACT 1936, which states that the terms resident and resident of Australia, in regard to an individual, are defined in subsection 6(1) of the ACT 1936. The definition provides 4 tests to ascertain whether a taxpayer is a resident of Australia for income tax purposes. The tests are: the resides test, the domicile test, the 183-day test, and the superannuation test. If any one of these tests is met, an individual will be a resident of Australia for taxation purposes. The resides test is the primary test for determining the residency status of an individual for taxation purposes. If residency is established under the resides test, the remaining three tests do not need to be considered. The resides test considers whether an individual is residing in Australia according to the ordinary meaning of the word reside, which is not defined in Australian taxation law. In Dempsey and Commissioner of Taxation, 2014, ATA 335, the Administrative Appeals Tribunal noted that the settled position of the courts, at ultimate appellate level, as to the meaning of the word resides for the purposes of subsection 6(1) of the ETA 1936 is that the word bears its ordinary English meaning, which is to dwell permanently or for a considerable time, to have one's settled or usual abode, to live in or at a particular place. Based on the facts you have provided, we consider you are residing in Australia according to the ordinary meaning of the word and are therefore a resident of Australia for taxation purposes under this test. As a consequence, the remaining tests of residency do not need to be considered in your case. Temporary residency for taxation purposes. An individual who is a resident of Australia for taxation purposes will also be considered a temporary resident for taxation purposes if they hold a temporary visa granted under the Migration Act 1958, and they are not an Australian resident within the meaning of the Social Security Act 1991, and they do not have a spouse who is an Australian resident within the meaning of the Social Security Act 1991. The Social Security Act 1991 defines an Australian resident as a person who resides in Australia and is an Australian citizen, the holder of a permanent visa, or a protected special category visa holder who was in Australia on or before February 26, 2001. Based on the facts you have provided, you are a temporary resident of Australia for taxation purposes because you hold a temporary visa issued under the Migration Act 1958, and neither you nor your spouse are Australian residents within the meaning of the Social Security Act 1991. Word number 48. Australian tax means a tax, however described, imposed under an Australian law. Word number 49. Average income has the meaning given by subsection 392-45(1) of the ETA 1997. Which states, work out your average income for those years. 1. Work out your average income in this way. Method statement. Step 1. Add up your basic taxable income for each of the income years over which you must average your basic taxable income. Step 2. Divide the sum by the number of those income years. Step 3. Round the result down to the nearest whole dollar if the result is not already a number of whole dollars. 2. Your basic assessable income for an income year is your assessable income for the income year less a. Any amount included in your assessable income section 8265, 82 to 70 or 302 to 145 of the Income Tax Assessment Act 1997, certain employment termination payments and superannuation benefits, and b. Any net capital gain included in your assessable income under Division 102 of the Income Tax Assessment Act 1997. Word number 50. Average input tax credit fraction has the meaning given by Section 79 to 100. You can find Section 79 to 100 on page number 89 and 90 of GST Act Volume 1. Except where subsection 7 applies, the average input tax credit fraction for a compulsory third-party scheme for a financial year is A. If paragraph B does not apply the same fraction as the average input tax credit fraction for the scheme for the preceding financial year, or B. If, under subsection 3, the minister determines the average input tax credit fraction for the scheme for the financial year, that fraction. Note: the average input tax credit fraction for financial years beginning on or before July 1, 2006 was worked out under this section as enforced before the commencement of Item 146 of Schedule 3 to the Treasury Laws Amendment, 2019 Measures No. 3, Act 2020. Minister to use statistical information to determine whether average input tax credit fraction is to be varied. 3. As soon as practicable after the beginning of each of the following financial years, a determination year. A. The financial year that begins on July 1, 2006. B. The financial years that begin on each July 1 that occurs 3 years, or a multiple of 3 years, after July 1, 2006. The minister must, for each compulsory third-party scheme. C. Work out business vehicle use fractions, see subsection 4, using each set of statistical information relating to business and total use of vehicles in the state or territory in which the scheme operates, published by the Australian Bureau of Statistics during the 3 financial years before the determination year, and D. Work out the average of those fractions, the new fraction, and E. If the minister considers the new fraction is significantly different from the average input tax credit fraction that would, disregarding this subsection, apply under paragraph 1a for the scheme for the financial year, the operative year, following the determination year, by legislative instrument. Determine that the new fraction is to be the average input tax credit fraction for the scheme for the operative year. Business vehicle use fraction. 4. The business vehicle use fraction is the fraction of total vehicle use in the state or territory in which the * compulsory third-party scheme operates, represented by business vehicle use. Publication of revised statistical information. 5. To avoid doubt, if, after publishing statistical information relating to business and total use of vehicles in a state or territory, the Australian Bureau of Statistics publishes a revised or replacement version of that statistical information, that revision or replacement is to be disregarded for the purposes of this section. Exception. 7. If a. This section is being applied in working out the amount of a decreasing adjustment that arises under sections 79 to 15, about sole operator elections, and b. The cover under the insurance policy concerned commenced before July 1, 2003. The average input tax credit fraction for the compulsory third-party scheme concerned is nil for all financial years beginning on or after July 1, 2000. Word number 51. Base year has the meaning given by sections 45 to 320 and 45 to 470 in Schedule 1 to the Taxation Administration Act 1953. Section 45 to 320 and 45 to 470 states working out installment rate. Word number 52. Batch repair process has the meaning given by section 117 to 5. You can find this section on page number 6 of volume 2 of GST Act. Division 117 to 5 Valuation of taxable importations of goods that were exported for repair or renovation. 1. The value of a taxable importation of goods that were exported from the indirect tax zone, that is Australia, for repair or renovation, or that are part of a batch repair process, is the sum of a. The cost, as determined by the Comptroller General of Customs, of materials, labor and other charges involved in the repair or renovation, and b. The amount paid or payable for the international transport of the goods to their place of consignment in the indirect tax zone, and 2. to insure the goods for that transport, to the extent that the amount is not already included under paragraph A and B. The amount paid or payable for a supply to which item 5A in the table in subsection 38-355(1) applies, to the extent that the amount I is not an amount, the payment of which, or the discharging of a liability to make a payment of which, because of Division 81 or regulations made under that division, is not the provision of consideration. And note, Division 81 excludes certain taxes, fees and charges from the provision of consideration. 2. Is not already included under paragraph A or B, and C. Any customs duty payable in respect of the importation of the goods. 1a. If an amount to be taken into account under paragraph 1b or ba is not an amount in Australian currency, the amount so taken into account is the equivalent in Australian currency of that amount, ascertained in the way provided in Section 161J of the Customs Act 1901. 2. Goods are part of a batch repair process if a. They are part of a process to replace goods that were exported from the indirect tax zone for repair or renovation, and b. They are not new or upgraded versions of the exported goods, and c. They are not replacing goods that have reached the end of their effective operational life. 3. This section has effect despite subsection 13-20(2), which is about the value of taxable importations. Word number 53. Beverage has the meaning given by subsection 38-4(2). You can find this section on page number 107 of volume. This states that beverage includes water. Word number 54. Borrowing has the meaning given by section 995(1) of the EDA 1997. Borrowing means any form of borrowing, whether secured or unsecured, and includes the raising of funds by the issue of a bond, debenture, discounted security or other document evidencing indebtedness. Word number 55. Business includes any profession, trade, employment, vocation or calling, but does not include occupation as an employee. Friends, that was it for section 5 of this video, which was page number 175 of division 195. Now we discuss words contained in page number 176 of dictionary. Please find words on screen. This is sixth and second last section of this video, explaining GST dictionary words of division 195 from GST Act. Word number 56. Business day has the meaning given by subsection 995-1 of the EDA 1997, which states that business day means a day other than a Saturday or a Sunday, or b. a day which is a public holiday for the whole of any state, or 2. the Australian Capital Territory, or 3. the Northern Territory. 57. Car has the meaning given by section 995-1 of the EDA 1997, which states, car means a motor vehicle, except a motorcycle or similar vehicle, designed to carry a load of less than 1 ton and fewer than 9 passengers. Word number 58. Car limit has the meaning given by section 40-230 of the Income Tax and Administration Act 1997. Subsection 40-230(1) of the ETA 1997 states that the first element of the cost of a car designed mainly for carrying passengers is reduced to the car limit for the financial year in which the entity started to hold it, if its cost exceeds the car limit. The car limit for the 2020-21 financial year is $59,136. Word number 59. Car parts in relation to cars includes A. Bodies for those cars, including insulated bodies, tank bodies, and other bodies designed for the transport or delivery of goods or other property of particular kinds. And B. Underbody hoists, and other equipment or apparatus of a kind ordinarily fitted to cars for use in connection with the transport or delivery of goods or other property by those road vehicles. Word number 60. Carried on in the indirect tax zone, in relation to an enterprise, has the meaning given by section 9 to 27. You can find this information on page number 22 of volume 1. Section 9 to 27 states, when enterprises are carried on in the indirect tax zone. 1. An enterprise of an entity is carried on in the indirect tax zone if A. The enterprise is carried on by one or more individuals covered by subsection 3, who are in the indirect tax zone, and B. Any of the following applies. I. The enterprise is carried on through a fixed place in the indirect tax zone. 2. The enterprise has been carried on through one or more places in the indirect tax zone for more than 183 days in a 12-month period. 3. The entity intends to carry on the enterprise through one or more places in the indirect tax zone for more than 183 days in a 12-month period. 2. It does not matter whether A. The entity has exclusive use of a place, or B. The entity owns, leases or has any other claim or interest in relation to a place. 3. This subsection covers the following individuals. A. If the entity is an individual, that individual. B. An employee or officer of the entity. C. An individual who is, or is employed by, an agent of the entity that I has, and habitually exercises, authority to conclude contracts on behalf of the entity, and 2. Is not a broker, general commission agent or other agent of independent status that is acting in the ordinary course of the agent's business as such an agent. Friends, in simple words, enterprise carried by an entity in Australia. Word number 61. Carrying on an enterprise includes doing anything in the course of the commencement or termination of the enterprise. Word number 62. Cash accounting turnover threshold has the meaning given by subsection 29-43. That is GST turnover less than $2 million and business turnover less than $10 million in financial year. Word number 63. Child Care Minister means the minister administering the Child Care Act 1972 and the Family Assistance Law, within the meaning of Section 3 of the A New Tax System, Family Assistance, Administration, Act 1999. Word number 64. Commercial accommodation has the meaning given by Section 87-15. You can find this section on page number 367 of Volume 1. Section 87-15 states, meaning of commercial accommodation. Commercial accommodation means the right to occupy the whole or any part of commercial residential premises, including, if it is provided as part of the right so to occupy, the supply of A. Cleaning and maintenance, or B. Electricity, gas, air conditioning, or heating, or C. Telephone, television, radio, or any other similar thing. Word number 65. Commercial residential premises means A. A hotel, motel, inn, hostel, or boarding house, or B. Premises used to provide accommodation in connection with a school, or C. A ship that is mainly let out on hire in the ordinary course of a business of letting ships out on hire, or D. A ship that is mainly used for entertainment or transport in the ordinary course of a business of providing ships for entertainment or transport, or D. a marina at which one or more of the berths are occupied, or are to be occupied, by ships used as residences, or E. a caravan park or a camping ground, or F. anything similar to residential premises described in paragraphs A to E. However, it does not include premises to the extent that they are used to provide accommodation to students in connection with an education institution that is not a school. That was it for section 6 of this video, which is page number 176 of division 195. Now we will have a look at last section of this video explaining GST Dictionary. This is section 7 of this video, that is page number 177 of GST ACT subdivision 195. Please find words on screen. Word number 66. Commissioner means the commissioner of taxation. Word number 67. Company means A. a body corporate, or B. any other unincorporated association or body of persons, but does not include a partnership or a non-entity joint venture. Word number 68. Complying superannuation fund has the meaning given by section 995 to 1 of the EDA 1997. Complying superannuation fund means a complying superannuation fund within the meaning of Section 45 of the Superannuation Industry, Supervision, Act 1993. Section 45 of the Superannuation Industry, Supervision, Act 1993 states: Complying superannuation fund. 1. A fund is a complying superannuation fund for the purposes of the Income Tax Assessment Act in relation to a year of income, the current year of income, if, and only if A. The regulator has given a notice to a trustee of the fund under Section 40 stating that the fund is a complying superannuation fund in relation to the current year of income, or B. The regulator has given a notice to a trustee of the fund under Section 40 stating that the fund is a complying superannuation fund in relation to a previous year of income, and has not given a notice to a trustee of the fund under that section stating that the fund was not a complying superannuation fund in relation to I. The current year of income, or 2. A year of income that is A. Later than that previous year of income, and B. Earlier than the current year of income. 2. Despite Section 2, the previous year mentioned in paragraph 1b may be a year of income earlier than the 1994 to 95 year of income, see Section 49. However, despite Section 49, if the fund was not a regulated superannuation fund at all times during the current year of income when the fund was in existence, paragraph 1b does not apply unless the previous year of income is the 1994 to 95 year of income or a later year of income. 3. For the purposes of this section, if a notice under Section 40 is revoked, or the decision to give the notice is set aside, the notice is taken never to have been given. 4. Section 170 of the Income Tax Assessment Act does not prevent the amendment of an assessment at any time for the purposes of giving effect to subsection 3. 5. For the purposes of this section, if a notice under Section 40 is given in relation to a fund in relation to a year of income, the notice is taken to have been given at the beginning of the year of income. 6. Despite subsection 1, if, at all times during a year of income when a fund was in existence, the fund was, or was part of, an exempt public sector superannuation scheme, the fund is a complying superannuation fund in relation to the year of income for the purposes of the Income Tax Assessment Act. Word number 69. Comptroller General of Customs has the same meaning as in the Customs Act 1901. Powers of Comptroller General of Customs. 1. where the Comptroller General of Customs, after considering a report under subsection 183 CQ 7, in relation to a broker's license, is A. Satisfied in relation to the license as to any of the matters mentioned in paragraphs A to J, inclusive of subsection 183 CQ 1, or B. Satisfied on any other grounds that it is necessary to do so for the protection of the revenue or for the purpose of ensuring compliance with the Customs Acts. He or she may, by notice to the customs broker, C. Cancel the license, or D. If the license is about to expire, order that the license not be renewed, or E. Reprimand the customs broker, or F. In a case where the license is not already suspended, suspend the license for a period specified in the notice, or G. In a case where the license is already suspended, further suspend the license for a period specified in the notice. 2. Where the Comptroller General of Customs, after considering a report under subsection 183 CQ 7, in relation to a broker's license, decides not to take any further action in the matter, he or she shall, by notice and writing to the customs broker, inform the customs broker accordingly, and if the license of the customs broker is suspended, he or she shall revoke the suspension. 3. A notice under subsection 1 shall A. Be in writing, and B. Be served, either personally or by post, on the holder of the license. 4. The period for which the Comptroller General of Customs may suspend or further suspend a license under subsection 1 may be a period expiring after the date on which the license, if not renewed, would expire. 5. Where the Comptroller General of Customs orders under paragraph 1d that a license not be renewed, he or she shall notify the appropriate collector accordingly. Word 69. Compulsory third-party scheme is a scheme or arrangement A. that is established by an Australian law, and B. that is specified in the regulations, or that is of a kind specified in the regulations, made for the purposes of this definition. Word 70. Connected with the indirect tax zone, in relation to a supply, has the meaning given by sections 9 to 25, 84 to 75, 85 to 5 and 126 to 27. Note, this meaning is also affected by sections 9 to 26, 84 to 83 and 96 to 5. In simple words, connected with Australia. That was it for this video, friends. We have discussed dictionary words meanings from pages from 171 to 177. We will discuss more in our next videos. To get instant updates, subscribe to our channel or please check out GST playlist on our YouTube channel. Question and answer activity. That was it for this video, friends. Now we will head into third part. A question and answer activity for you. Answering these questions will improve your understanding of this act. You can use this video or GST Act Volume 2 from pages 171 to 177 to answer these questions. There is a link in description box below. For a free digital copy of question sheet, please feel free to contact us. Question 1. What is ACNC-registered charity for GST purposes? 2. What is adjustment note? 3. What is annual apportionment turnover threshold? 4. What is assessable professional income? 5. What is batch repair process? 6. What is cash accounting turnover threshold? 7. What is Comptroller General of Customs? That was it for this video. If you have any questions in relation to this section, please don't hesitate to contact us. Please check out whole playlist about GST on our channel. Thanks for watching. To support us, subscribe to our channel.